So welcome everyone to this wonderful fireside chat with European Women on Boards Chair Hedwige Nuyens and CEO Kristen Anderson. We are very excited to have you here with us today. So you can write in chat, as I see everyone's already doing, where you are from, and also if you'd like, you can share your LinkedIn profiles. And please, if your display names do not have your name in them, we kindly ask that you change them to your names. You can click the three dots next to your video and choose rename. We know that you will have a lot of questions during this event, so we ask that you write those questions in the chat. And our chat moderator, Kritika, and thank you again, Kritika, for agreeing to do this. And she will be relaying the questions to our speakers at the Q&A portion of the event. So some of the basic community guidelines are the chat and mouse rule does not apply for this particular event because it's public. And a recording actually will be made available soon on EWOB Member Zone and also EWOB YouTube channel. And if you'd rather your name not be used in the event recaps that we post on our website and in our internal channels, please send a message to me right now privately, and your comments will then either will not be shared or be shared anonymously. And as mentioned below, the event is recorded. But that also means that your comments and messages in chat are recorded. So please keep that in mind. And we also kindly ask that you do not promote any businesses or services in chat. But however, networking with other members by sharing your own LinkedIn profile page or things like that is encouraged always. So our agenda for today is going to be Kristen and Hedwige's chat followed by a Q&A. And after that, there will be a 30-minute networking session. It's for EWOB members only, but we still have a few seats left. So if you are interested in joining the half-hour networking session, please send a message to me privately on Zoom now. So today, Hedwige and Kristen are going to be talking about what the official passing of the Women on Boards Directive in the EU means for all of us. And with that, I pass the baton, the mic to Hedwige. And welcome again.
Thank you so much, Chala. So welcome everyone in this call. My name is Hedwige Nuyens. I'm the chair of European Women on Boards. Of course, I know many of you in this call, but it's always nice to see new faces. So very happy New Year to all of you that we didn't see so far. And apart from being a chair of European Women on Board, I'm the CEO of the International Banking Federation, also a very busy job. And I'm the mom of 3 really nice children, all grown up now. So passing it to you, Kristen.
Hello, everyone. Joining from Helsinki. A bit snowy, rainy, cold. I'm here for one of our events with our member partners. I'm usually based in Italy. Before I joined EWOB as a volunteer, I was the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Barilla. That's how I ended in Italy. And luckily met EWOB, met Hedwige, and started working with the organization in 2021. So it's been a while, and recently took on the role of CEO. So good to see all of you, and looking forward, if I haven't met you before, that we could connect sometime for sure on LinkedIn and maybe have a quick call to get to know each other. So now Hedwige and I are going to have just an informal talk back and forth, asking each other some questions and then bringing in the questions that you may have in the chat. So I start first with asking Hedwige a question. So Hedwige, for those in the audience that are not familiar with the details, could you explain the recently approved EU Directive for Women on Boards and also EWOB's role in its recent approval?
Yes, with pleasure. And actually, for those of you, you might not know in the audience, but European Women on Boards was precisely created to work on this directive because more than 10 years ago, there was already a proposal in the parliament to say that you needed to have 40% women on boards. And then it was blocked. It was blocked at the level of the states. And there were a couple of women so angry about this that they started to say, we have to do something. We have to create an organization, and that was European Women on Boards. And so when we became a member of the board, Kristen and myself, we said we have to take it on again. And bravely, with also another man in the board, we managed to help and to contribute to get this directive unblocked. So what does it say? in each of the 27 EU countries. And you can look it up. It's basically all European countries except those that are not part of the Union, like UK, Switzerland, and Norway. But in all the other countries of the European Union, you will need to have 40% women in every single board that is stock listed. So it's a major goal, it's a major achievement, and it will now be up to the countries to put that in regulation. And of course, European Women on Boards will help again, help to make it happen, and also help to use every single instrument and service that we provide within European Women on Boards to have available women, to have women like yourself ready and eager to take on those positions. So major achievement. We have a summary available if you want, so you can reach out to us if you want. You can also see where your country stands compared to others, because there are huge differences across the Union. But so basically, we have the Women on Board Directive, and by mid-2026, in every board, every stock listed board, you will need to have 20% women. So that's basically one thing. The question is, of course, what does it mean then for our members or for the ladies in the room, Kristen? Perhaps you can tell us what does it mean and how can I prepare precisely, and how is EWOP helping?
Well, thanks, Hedwige. And that's one of the questions we hear a lot. So how does this change where I am, and what can I do to prepare for this, let's say, new world of 40% women on boards? Many of you are members of EWOB, but for those of you who don't know, as Hedwige said, we're an organization that's 10-year anniversary this year. And we're focused on women that are close to the C-suite, in the C-suite, or actively looking for a board position or on boards. And we provide networking and individual membership, like today, these type of events every 2 weeks, that you can learn about how to interview for a board, how to update your LinkedIn profile, how to personally brand. And then we also offer programs that are tailored for women. So we have 3 programs. We have a C-level program that is started in 2019. So it's our kind of flagship program that we started many years ago. And we've trained over 200 women around Europe. And we just launched in September our Board Ready program for women that are actively looking for board roles. So it's the 5 steps to getting prepared for a board position. And then we also have our cross-border mentoring program, where we match a senior level woman with a mentor, man or woman that's more senior in a different industry, in a different country. So I think this is really one of the benefits that many of our members tell us is for EWOB, is that cross-border connection and networking and across industry or within the same industry. As Hedwige mentioned, we're now at more than 560 members, men and women. So I see man and women on this call. And that's the big benefit, is to connect, to try to remove barriers for us taking on more decision-making roles. So that's, again, one of, I think, the benefits of EWOB, is this community of like-minded senior level leaders who want to achieve more and move ahead in their careers and take on more decision-making roles. Hedwige, I may ask a question back to you. What do you think are the biggest opportunities and challenges in implementing the Women on Boards Directive? Now that it has been approved after more than 10 years, we go to the implementation phase. Could you give us your perspective on opportunities and challenges?
Yes, so of course, many in the audience know that I'm always seeing opportunities, more opportunities than challenges. But the biggest opportunity is, of course, that you have EU regulation that will now be in place in every single country. And when you look at the statistics, of course, France, Belgium, Italy, countries that have had those objectives for a long time, they are already at 40. They are at 40%, 45, France even 50. But many other countries, and more than 2/3 of the countries in EU are below. And some of the countries are really below 10%. So the big create change and create a movement across Europe. I would also say that it creates not only something at the level of the regulation, it also changes the stance in each single board, in each single organization, in each single trade organization. So what we try to see is how can we get as many stakeholders as possible to inform them, to motivate them, to help them find the women motivated, find the right profiles. Also in the directive, you will see that there are much stricter rules in terms of transparency. You will have to advertise to show which kind of board profile you are looking for, explain how you chose your board candidate, and also motivate in case you still have not the 40% women and you nominate another man, why this man was the only candidate, the best candidate. So I would say many, many opportunities. Of course, you have challenges as well, especially in those countries or those companies that actually never were looking for women. It can mean a change. It can, of course, also lead to questions. I think basically that we should be past this discussion. We've seen in every single country where measures were put in place that they found women. And I can tell you, we have so many competent women now ready and eager, and EWOP is showing the way. We have so many executive search firms that are looking to increase their talent base. So yes, there will be challenges, but regulation is regulation. There is no other way around. And it also fits perfectly with the new corporate governance rules and the rules for more diversity and much more expertise in the board. But well, challenges there are, Kristen, so perhaps you can share a little bit more in detail how we try to make that talent pool work and also to have that link with the executive search and companies.
Thanks, Hedwige. And I think that's the piece that is really exciting, is the actionable part about how do we connect our group of talented men and women with board positions or C-suite positions. We know that it'll change, but in the past, it's been up to 85% of board positions are actually filled via a network and not always transparent. There's some organizations and executive recruiters, and Hagen is a partner in one of them, that actually are very transparent, that look for a diverse slate of candidates to present, and that actually come and look, to EWOP for potential applicants for board positions, but that's not everyone. And so what we're working on is how we can connect our talent pool, we call it our talent pool of women, with the executive recruiters that are looking for board positions and C-suite positions. And provide that transparency. Of course, respecting privacy. We're not giving anyone's information out. This will be something that will be respecting GDPR, but be able to connect those two dots, the important dots of the open positions with the talented women. We want to, ultimately, our goal is to remove the argument that I would like to have a woman on the board or to be my chief information officer, but I can't find any talented leaders to take the role. We want to remove that argument and say they're part of EWOP, and that's the role we can play in the implementation. And so that's what we're working on in terms of executive recruiters. We also, I think, the network of women and men in EWOP provides such a valuable benefit in terms of also helping other men and women find those jobs. Because a lot of times, we have one of our board members, Jan Babiak, I remember in her webinar, she said, in my previous roles at companies, I was not allowed to be on boards, but when a board recruiter would come to me, I also had 5 women in my network who could do that role, and I would recommend them. So I think us being advocates for other women and men, helping them find the roles, and sometimes pushing them and saying, you are ready for a board position. Take the C-level program. That will get you the skills to take on a C-suite position. You're almost there. So I think that this community that we have is very valuable in many ways of encouragement, of training, and networking, connecting with the open roles that will be more transparent, I think, after now that the directive has been approved. Shall we ask if there's any questions? I was watching all the faces and I didn't see if there was questions in the chat. Kritika?
There is one question. I can read it out for you. It's from Christina Montien. And her comment is one of the reasons that she hears when working with women leaders about why they avoid going into the board is that they don't agree with the way that the company is run because of shareholder pressures, and they want to grow in the board and live and work with integrity. So she asks, how will the new directive impact investors and funds who usually put unrealistic pressure on listed companies, thereby thus maximizing the leadership environment toxic for women? Thank you for the question, Christina. Back to you.
Yes, so I can answer that question, Christina. Of course, you're right, but I would say in general to all women in this audience, it's up to you to choose the company you want to work for. Be it an employee, be it a manager, an expert, be it an executive committee or a board. I would not recommend to apply and to take on a position if you are not at all in agreement with the strategy and the mindset. Of course, if you want to be an activist and become a shareholder, then move out, why not? But you need a lot of money and a lot of, how would I say, grit. And the question is whether that's what you want to do. So I would say, of course, it's always the case that when you become a board member or an executive director, it's precisely your role to change things. So you'd better want to change things as well. But if the fundamentals are not right, if your values are not aligned, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. So choose your boss, choose your board, and make change happen from the place you are. It's precisely because you are going to use your expertise and you're going to use your difference and your diversity that you will be an added value. So both ways are wrong. If you try to adjust the company and lose your value and your personality, your added value is none. And if you hope that on your own, you can change the whole system, you might be disappointed. So what we always learn, and this is also very much my personal experience, when I moved the ranks, the biggest skill I had to learn was how to create common ground, how to create alliances around the table. So I can be right on my own. It won't change anything. You need to try to see with your values what you want to realize in the company. How can you find others that want that change as well? And then if you are sufficient number around the table, then you can change things. So I would say, Christina, yes, we need to be ambitious and want to change things, but if the fundamentals are not right, you have so many opportunities. Choose the right goal.
And to add on, Hedwige, what you said, I think it's a key point. One of the first webinar in our Board Ready program is what board is right for you and why. It is really spending the time to think exactly that question. What type of board? Because we all know there's many types of boards, and what industry and what are your skills that you think could be highlighted once you've decided what kind of board is right for you. And sometimes we have those skills. We're just not actually branding ourselves and showing those skills in the right way that attracts, that we have a LinkedIn profile that's specifically for boards, but it's not the same. If for C-level boards, different LinkedIn profile, different bio. And so I think really getting ourselves to evaluate our skills in a way, and actually having others help us evaluate our skills, and then in order to achieve and get that board position that we think fits our capabilities and our interests and our values, as you said, Christina.
Thank you. Perhaps we can move on to a next question from Noella Mansilla. Thank you for the question, Noella. Is European Women on Board expecting roadblocks in specific countries when the directive is transposed to each and every country?
Yes, of course. There is no reason why this would be easier if the directive was blocked for 10 years. You can imagine that not everyone finds it's a good idea, but we have a strategy in place. You might be thinking that already. So we are going to use and to align with as many allies as possible. You know the strategy, there is no secret. I do it every single time, but not alone, with Kristen, with the whole board, the advisory board, the executive committee. So how do we do that? It means that we are reaching out to politicians in the country, try to find the friendly politicians that will help, see how they're going to propose regulation. We are also joining forces with legal firms. We have just published a partnership that we have with one of the big law firms that are going to help us to implement and to understand the legal roadblocks in each country. We are going to work with companies. We're going to work with the trade organizations of companies in Europe. We're going to work with executive search firms. So actually, what we are doing is to implement very thoughtfully a strategy of helping factors in each country. And I wouldn't forget actually all of you, because now with European Women on Boards, we have ladies in every single country. Every single country. If I need something in Croatia, in Cyprus, if Kristen needs something in Finland, we have organizations and members everywhere. And so each of you could also play a role. If ever we have a blocking factor in a country, we're going to see who we know in that country and we will ask for help.
And if I can add on a piece to that, Hedwige, I think that there's two pieces that you can, a role that you can play in trying to remove the bias, conscious or unconscious bias, that is in some people's minds about this directive. When it's called a quota, when people say, I'm against quotas, I don't like the word quota because it has a lot of baggage that goes with it. I like the word objective, target, metric, KPI. When you have a business goal, and all of us are business leaders here, you don't do that without some kind of goal, some kind of measure, a target. And that's exactly what the board directive is. We know we don't achieve what we don't measure. And the thing that Hedwige has highlighted, and I think EWAB has done a great job in, is actually showing the data. And you can see that on the GDI report, that the countries that didn't put any kind of directive in basically achieved no progress. So when you talk to people about the directive and they say, well, I don't like it, I'm against this because it's a quota. No woman wants to have an unqualified woman pulled off from the street and put on a board. But we're showing there are qualified women. If we have a transparent process of recruiting them and we have a talent pool who's ready to take those board roles, then we can match the two. But it's not a quota, and it's a business objective, because we know, and the research shows, that gender diversity and decision-making levels is beneficial for companies, for organizations, and for countries. So if you believe that, you should set a target, and then you should work towards that target. So you can help by removing that kind of bias that this is a quota and this is something about, unqualified women or men will have less opportunities. No, women and men will have the same opportunities if they have the same qualifications.
Thank you. We have a next question from Marlene Torre. Are women not more tending to go on non-paying board positions than men? Should we not change that? Thank you, Marlene, for that question.
Yes, that happens, Marlene. And at the same time, it can be useful to start somewhere. So what I mean, we talk with women every day. When you move from an executive career, fully executive committee, and you want to move to a board, many women ask then, how do I get there? How do I get there? And most of the time, it very seldom is immediately. So very seldom you will move from being a CEO to become a chair of a listed company. That happens very, very seldom. So also for your advantage, it could help during your current job that you add a board position or an advisory board or a committee role in your expertise just to start. Just to start and see, is that board something for me? How do I like it? What do I need? What else would I like to learn? So I would say, yes, it can be a very smart idea to start in a not-for-profit or in a not unpaid position, but you should have a plan. And that's also what we say in our training. The question is, where do you head to? Is that a non-profit or that non-unpaid position going to bring you expertise or experience or a title you can put on your LinkedIn that is on your goal, end goal, or your next goal to reach a board position?
I think that's very clear, Hedwige, too, is that, you need to have a strategy. You need to say, what, as I said before, what's the right board? But how do I tailor my bio? How do I start my executive, how do I start searching? How do I get into board platforms? How do I get connected with the recruiters? All of these are the steps to finding a board position that you have to go through.
Thank you very much. And we've got a next question from Lone Haas. How do you expect the requirements to publicly listed to companies will spill over to the big majority of non-listed SME companies?
So for the moment, of course, the directive is only on listed companies, that's for sure. And that's also where we will start, to say so, where we will start with our focus today. We know that after that, it could be useful to extend it to non-listed companies, also to state-owned companies in general. And that's not only my biggest wish. My wish would be, after this directive, that we move to objectives at executive level, because we know that change is coming at board level. But the biggest gap that we see is the level just beyond executive committee. So my wish and my hidden idea actually is also to convince executive search firms and companies that if they want to have sufficient talent at board level, they should move and have more women in the pipeline, full stop, and also nominated in executive committee positions. Because we know that it's extremely useful when you are in a board to have had that experience at executive committee level. So I'm going to use the directive at board level to convince companies that it makes sense to really fill up the pipeline before. But step by step, now we're going to focus on getting this right. And of course, EWOP is about getting as many women as possible at both levels, C-level and board. And that's also how we are helping in the board positions.
Yeah, and that's why we have the two different training programs depending where women are in their careers. And we are having recruiting companies come to us with some C-level positions, CFO, CIO. So it's happening, but we're working hard to connect recruiters with our talent pool, with one of our main focus areas for this year.
Interesting you talk about the pipeline. So that sort of segues nicely into the next question we have from Nora Stolz. Her comment is, will you be able to cover the UK in the legal research project that you spoke about, Hedwige? And she says that she is happy to get involved and support as much as she can. And her question is, what are your thoughts on shadow boards to build diverse pipeline? And this is one of those questions I had in mind originally coming into the session as well. So great to see that. Thanks, Nora. Back to you, Hedwige and Kristen.
Thank you. So yes, we cover UK as well, because we are European women on boards in the old-fashioned way, and Europe is Europe, and it includes UK, and it includes, of course, Norway and Switzerland and beyond, because we have now also many countries not in the European Union yet, but willing to know more. So we are looking beyond that. UK is not doing too bad. So they didn't have a regulation, but they managed to have increasingly more attractive objectives, and now they are at 50% women non-executive positions. It doesn't mean that they are done yet at executive level, and we have many members in the UK willing to join European Women on Boards because they are interested to move to a position at European level and not just UK. And so that differentiates us from other organizations in the UK, but very important to learn from them. UK also has a much bigger tradition of, and Marleen will again have some comments, but UK has a much bigger tradition of publishing non-profit board positions. They have also many more of that. And so in the UK, you will find much more positions published on the website of search firms. Shadow board, I will perhaps let Kristen explain what also we are going to do in terms of board apprenticeship.
Yeah, we've decided it's a good question, and we discussed this actually before we opened the call, because one of the initiatives we're taking, because we think, we want to provide a talent pool that's board ready and trained and C-suite ready and trained, and give them as much of the experience on a board as possible. So we're working towards we're going to have a board apprenticeship program where we're going to have different women come into roles on our board and be able to see how the board works, and be able to learn from that experience. And it's a set time frame, and then we will have another person come on the board. So I think apprenticeship is one of a good way to get that experience in a limited time, and let people learn, and then move on and take on other roles. I think I remember very well, because Hedwige and I both took the C-level program, which discussed also board positions at the same time in 2020. And I remember Hagen saying that, looking at nonprofits, looking at being on boards of schools or community type organizations is a very good way, as Hedwige already mentioned, to get some experience on the inner workings of a board. And that could be a stepping stone, but it's not the final thing. You need to have as a step to the next thing that you want to do. And that's, I think, what we like to help women with in our programs is put this time aside and bring in experts so that you can actually analyze what you want next and match that with your interests and your career capabilities to make the right match. So I think I found that's one of the big benefits of EWOB.
Thank you. And keep those questions coming through the chat. We're waiting to the next question now from Virginie Vinel-Colavos. How is the impact of a woman on board measured? Great question, Virginie. Thank you.
Yes, it's a great question, and I'm going to make you laugh because it's a question that we never ask from men. Who ever asked the added value of all those men on boards? But I can tell you what changes. So we have a study from what has happened in the banking industry. I'm working in the banking industry, as you know, and the supervisors obliged banks to be more diverse, to have more women in the board. And what they saw is that when you extend and have a more diversified inflow in the banking industry, it lowered the age level. So there were younger persons coming in instead of the old white gray. Also the extension, the level, the bandwidth of expertise grew. So if you have a more, that's logic. Think about it. If you have more women, if you take talent from more diverse backgrounds, you will have a much better representation of skills, more skills in sustainability, in marketing, in reputation risk, in long-term thinking. What we also saw in the banking industry is that with women on boards, banks were both less risky and more profitable. But that's only one of the reasons we have. We don't want to have to explain it over and over again. We are there, we are representative of a wide area of talent. And it's even with a twist, we shouldn't be obliged to each time explain why we need to have an added value and the other ones don't have to explain.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Hedwige. And I think, there is a lot of research that shows about more diverse boards, whether it's, decision-making groups, making more ethical decisions, being more creative and innovative, and achieving more financial results. So if there's anyone in your organizations that still need to have the argument about why diverse teams perform better, you could always reference that research.
Brilliant. Moving on to the next question. Again, something that I'm personally passionate about in ESG. So Nicoletta Zapatini, thank you for this question. What is the position of EWOB on ESG integration in companies and investment management players? Is there the possibility to interact with practitioners in regulation and use of metrics for reaching net zero targets in boats?
Yes. Yes, of course. And we know that in the vast majority of cases, ESG positions, ESG expertise is predominantly female. So if you're looking at what companies are now doing in terms of building up expertise at expert level, you have many, many women active having that skill. So if you want to have that skill represented at board level, it's crucial to tap into female talent. And then responding to one of the first questions of Cristina Montean, it's not that being an ESG expert makes it, how would I say, fully easy, because you know that whenever you talk about ESG, about sustainability, it can create friction, it can create tension, because the whole idea is to balance the ESG goals and the ESG objectives with other objectives within the firm. So it means that at board level, as in other functions, you will have to use your skill and your expertise to challenge it, to put your expertise at board level at use, but also to try to see how you can convince others and how you can interact with other values or other objectives, be it financials, be it employees, be it clients, etc., etc. But I would say ESG for sure. And we are also in talks with lawyers to get some articles published to explain how the Women on Board Directive fits a much broader accountability and publication requirement that is coming at board level, where each board will have to explain how they will meet sustainability criteria. And in the EFRAG standards, that's another technical term, diversity at board level and a wider expertise at board level will also be required. So we are putting the first stone now with the Women on Board Directive. Other elements will be added and will be fully in line with the efforts that we are paying off now.
Any comments from your side, Kristen?
No, I think this morning there was an interesting, the diversity index for the Nordics was presented. That's one of the reasons I'm here in Helsinki, and NASDAQ came and presented. It was at their site here. And it was interesting when they talked about the legislation from NASDAQ in terms of diversity on boards, which goes beyond gender, and it goes into race, ethnicity, LGBT, disability, and it's a wave. I mean, as Hedwige said, it's coming. But they're, I mean, talking about the results, not only the results of companies that have more diversity on their boards, but the results of also research they've done on retention. That if you have more diverse boards, when people stay on boards, because when you're, I think we earlier talked about, if the company's not aligned with your values, then you may be the only one that is not the majority. That's a difficult position to be into, and that's one of the pieces that you have to consider when you're thinking about what's the right board for me, what's the right company, is to do your research and decide, am I ready to be the only one? There's ways to deal with that, but that's also another element in those decisions. And a lot of times what NASDAQ said is if the only one, that one tends to leave if you're not an inclusive environment in the board. So I think there's a lot of other elements that come together to making these hopefully more diverse boards, which will happen, effective and inclusive in the future.
Thank you very much. Nadine Struband asks, do you expect this directive to apply to not-for-profit companies and associations in the future?
It could be, but actually I expect that for not-for-profit organizations, there will be other ways to do so, because normally you would expect that they are more value-driven. So I would say, why not? It is certainly what we expect over time. I think if we have to advocate for something, I would rather go first to extend it to executive committees, because that is going to make even more change within corporates.
But it could happen in a kind of a trickle-down effect.
Yes.
Because if other boards are more diverse and inclusive and people want to join those boards, it could be like more of a search for talent. And if then it trickles down to smaller organizations, nonprofit SMEs saying, well, maybe I need to focus on bringing a difference in my board as a way to retain and get good talent on my board.
Great. We have a next question from Il Budo. How do you want to challenge...
From Elizabeth. From Elizabeth.
Brilliant. Hi, Elizabeth. Sorry about it. Well, how do you want to challenge 2023 and on which major KPI will you relay?
Yeah, I can start with that one, and I think probably Elizabeth is on our executive committee, so we're working very hard as together to put our very aggressive goals for 2023. And so thank you, Elizabeth, for asking and sharing a little bit about what our objectives are. But as I said already, I mean, it really is connecting the recruiters and the platforms with women. We're also looking, of course, to expand our membership. Zeynep is on the call. She's responsible also on the executive committee for our individual membership and our events like today, to have more members so we can grow our network. So we have more talented men and women to be able to offer and to the positions that we're going to bring in from executive recruiters. More corporate sponsors is one of Elizabeth and her team's goals. And again, Hedwige has talked a lot about the EU directive, and I think there's actually a question in the chat about how will our strategy be different country by country in terms of the implementation of the EU directive? I mean, because every country is in a different place. I mean, you talked about France at a very high level because they have their own directive, in the UK and the way they've approached it. Italy, where I live, had their own directive, and now they're going to think to, they need to go up to above 40. So I think that that's one thing that Hedwige and the team is mapping out, is a country by country strategy. It will have to be different based on the situation. Some will be heavy work with our member associations and partners in the country. Sometimes we can work directly with members of the government. Probably I pass it over to Hedwige, who knows more. But I think that those are key areas that are KPIs and the areas of focus for EWAB this year.
Yeah, and I think we can proudly say, Kristen, that we also have a target for men. So we do it the other way around. We try to have at least 30% a man in our board. Kristen has the same target. And for the executive search, you recruited a man, isn't it, Kristen?
Yes, we have our executive, newest ExCom member is a man. So we're working hard on, and our new advisory board that was just reformed is being chaired by Hagen is 50-50 men, women. And we took in aspects of all other types of diversity into the board. So you can see the faces and see the makeup of our advisory board, our board, and our executive committee, that we're working to have more gender diversity and all other diversities included in to walk the talk of diverse boards.
Great.
And then
Thank you very much.
something else I would like to add, which we are very proud of, Kristen and myself, is that for us, it's really having that full expertise in our talent pool. So we have set an additional target. We want, of course, 1,000 women. The sooner the better, and you can help in this. 1,000 women ready and eager to join the C-level and the board position. But we want to make sure that we have all talent represented. And so our goal, and Zenip is doing great work in that, we are looking continuously in our database, where are the women coming from, the age, the origin, and we know that some of the groups in society are not fully represented yet. And that's what why we are thinking of, how can we partner with other organizations, how can we create a system of scholarships. If the fee is a problem, how can we cover part of the fee? So in case you have ideas in this audience, in case you would like to know more about this system of a scholarship or whether you could apply for it, don't hesitate. You can write us via LinkedIn, via mail, because we want to make a difference, and we want to be sure that we have all level of women and female talent available.
And to add on to what Hedwige said, I mean, I think there's quite a few members that are on the call. I can see some names. I can see Patricia. I see that there's also Carla, many that have taken our courses. So that's another way to invest in yourself. There's Raquel, Patricia Gastoso. I look at all of the members here that can tell you what you can get from the Board Ready program, the C-level program, or the mentoring program. Because I think that one of the benefits is to put the time aside for yourself to get experts to help take that next step in your career. And I know that I took the program, so I can speak from a participant that sometimes we just don't spend the time and put aside for ourselves to really think about what do we want next, and get the expertise to help us achieve that next goal.
Great. We'll move on to the next question from Natasha Matsekis. Kalispera, Natasha. Different countries are at different levels of maturity in terms of metrics and objectives, in including women in BOD. Is this influencing your strategy?
Yes, of course. We look at the numbers country by country. We also look at the number of stock-listed companies. So you might not know, but Malta, for example, is one of the countries with the lowest number of women on boards. And at the same time, it's a tiny country, but with an unbelievable big number of stock-listed companies. So it's quite obvious that we're going to look into this and try to see how can we make a change happen. Poland is another country. It's a country where you have below 30% women, And it's a very, very large country. So that would be high on my priority list. So we are all volunteering in this. So we have to choose and pick our battles. Based on those two criteria, I start a strategic plan together with a legal firm and also together with the volunteers in this room and elsewhere that are going to help us.
Anything to add from your side, Kristen?
No, I think that what Hedwige said is true. I mean, we're a small nonprofit made up of more than 100 volunteers. So we'll pick the priorities where we feel we can influence and work heavily with our partners in the local countries, because that's really one of our focus areas, is to have presence in all the countries where we can, working with great partners that we have. And one of them is here in Finland. And that's why I'm here for some events to discuss this exact topic.
Brilliant.
So Finland, Maria Sipilä is the board member for Finland. She's in this call. And so they are at 37%. So it's great. And I trust Maria and her Finnish friends. They will be able to interact with the Finnish government. I also know that Finland has an incredible tool, a kind of database where because Maria is representing more than hundreds and hundreds of Finnish board members, they have a database where those members can put in their CV, their skills, and we will be looking whether we can use that at European level. So we very much try to reuse or to capitalize on all the expertise and knowledge that we have in the different organizations to be more efficient at European level.
Thank you, Hedwige and Kristen. We'll move on to the next question and keep those questions coming through the chat. Thank you for all of these, and we're excited to be talking about it. The next question is from Ulrika Red Nielsen. How do you tie in not only corporate executives, but also successful entrepreneurs into the pipeline for board-ready candidates?
Yeah, I can start with that one. So it's what I said before in terms of becoming a member of EWA, but also attending our C-level or board program. We have quite a few entrepreneurs. Actually, an even increasing percentage of the women that attend our programs are entrepreneurs. And that's fantastic. And the programs are designed for you to be able to figure out what's the right board with your skills. So it's open to everyone at a senior level. We do ask, people to apply because we want to make sure that the women that come into the two different programs are at a senior level. So you're networking with people in basically the same type of level around Europe. And I think there was a question about how often do we run our programs. Both of the C-level and the board ready program are twice a year. Starting in the spring. We actually have the two programs starting in February, and then there'll be another programs in September. And our cross-border mentoring will start in April. So that's the timeline. But so basically, that's how we tie in women from leaders from all different walks of life in terms of bringing them into our programs and into our membership.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anything to add from your side, Hedwige?
All okay.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question. We have a question here from Virginie Vinel-Kovos again. How is the impact of a woman on board? Oh, sorry. My apologies. I think we asked that question. We have another question coming through. Just give me one moment. My computer has gone a little bit insane.
I think that there's a question about if I want to skip. I don't know if Kritika Yeshwitz to skip or you want, because there's one about what happens to companies that don't meet the goals until 2026.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
That's
go ahead.
a very important question. So in the Women on Board Directive, it is said that the companies themselves have to put an objective. It's also said that it's not a free thing, a free lunch. So it means that in the national regulation, there should be persuasive, efficient, and really efficient measures that will convince companies to get that target. So of course, we try the voluntary measures. That's always better. But we know that in some of the objectives rulings that are in place already, you have sanctions, even though nobody likes sanctions, but sometimes it's the only way. It can be, for example, that the nomination of, again, another man will be nullified, will just be refused. It can be that no decision can be taken by such a board that is not legally constituted. So there are a number of penalties that can be foreseen. It can also be fees, and so penalty fees, whatever the state can choose, but it should be something that in practice has proven to work.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions from any of our members?
I think there's a question from any plans for in-person networking from Natasha.
Yeah, from Natasha, yes.
I
Go
can,
ahead.
yeah, that's one of the, it's a good question, because that's definitely one of the biggest questions that we get, is that after so much time on Zoom, people want to do in-person events. So we're starting local chapter with local events. We've had them, we've had them since May of last year. We had an event in Brussels, in France, in Paris. We've had one in Prague and Frankfurt. We're planning one for Italy. So we have really excited members who want to, and members of our committees who want to organize face-to-face meetings with, key speakers, some opportunity to network within the local context, and many times in the local language. So it's a combination. If you become a member of EWAB, you of course get every 2 weeks an invitation to these type of events. There's a member zone that has all of the recordings, and Zeynep and her team manage all of it. Chala and Palin are here organizing these great events and making sure the recordings are available. And then of course you'll see the invites for in-person events. And sometimes our women are traveling. We were in Prague and someone came from the UK. Zana came from the UK because I wanted to come to Prague anyway, and a great opportunity to meet other women. So you don't have to be a member of living in that country to attend the in-person events. You can do that, from anywhere.
We have a question from Irina Kabunaru. Is there any interest on focus assessing women's legislation at broad level at industries? There are industries that lag behind, and perhaps a particular focus on those will have significant impact.
Yes, but when we did the gender diversity index report, the last one, it was quite clear that the most differences came from the country. So there are small differences between industries, that's right, but the biggest difference comes from the country you're in. And of course, you have, that's typical, you have some industries where it is also a little bit more complicated, with a lot of IT, STEM related. But even in STEM related businesses, you need a board from all kinds of expertise. So it's not because you're in a STEM business that you do not need finance and HR and marketing and sustainability on your board. So that shouldn't be a problem.
I see that there's a question about when the next programs are. So the C-level program starts in February, mid-February, and the Board Ready program both start in February. The next one start in September. And our cross-border mentoring program is a year-long program where you're matched with a more senior man or woman in a different industry, in a different country, but aligned with what goals you want to achieve. So that's why you apply and talk about what you're working on. And that's a year-long program.
We have another question from Christina Montien. Do you expect less interest in countries with smaller stock exchanges such as Czech Republic, Slovenia, and Romania?
I didn't get the question, so can you repeat?
Yes, the question from Christina Montien is, do you expect less interest in countries with smaller stock exchanges, such as the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Romania?
No, the biggest change needs to happen there. It's the biggest change. So look at it positively. The potentiality is the biggest there as well. I don't say that it will be easy, but there is no hiding. I mean, every country will have to take measures, and in a way, as now this will be the case in every EU country, it will happen. I'm pretty sure about that. And so that's also why it's so important to have women from all over Europe, to have them in place, to have them ready, etc. So if I may perhaps give an overarching comment for all the members in the room, so the EWOP members here in the room, you can feel it. And we now have a critical mass. We are going to go further, but we really need as many women as we can. Let's say we are ready, we are there. And then, of course, with the help of the community and with the programs, we're going to increase that visibility. But there is actually no reason to think that we cannot change things if we work together, if we have those male allies, if we are really strategic, because that's what we say we want to do. We want to be on the board, we want to be on an executive committee. So please participate in this strategic debate. It's such a nice opportunity to make it happen at European level. And so I would say perhaps as last comment, our motto is to try to make it fun and easy, and to enjoy it the way we like to do things in business. So Kristen, perhaps you want to give some final comments.
No, I think just to add on to what you said, Hedwige, I mean, I think that's one of the great benefits of European Women on Boards. I mean, it's open to anyone that wants to join it. It's a senior level looking for a C-suite or board position in Europe. So you don't need to be based in the 27 countries, as Hedwige already said. You don't need to be based in Europe. We have members and attendees from our programs who are based in Malaysia, who are in Japan, because they are interested in the future in getting a board or a C-suite position in Europe. And I think that, you know, working together, being advocates for each other, networking together to highlight those positions is going to be also one of the great, I think is going to be a great result in what we can achieve as a community.